This is the 415ers podcast brought to you by the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings, Mark Randy with you as always, coming at you a couple times each week in the off season. So stay tuned, download, rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. 5 stars are, of course, appreciated. Okay, Mark. I know we had talked about going through some quarterbacks specifically in the NFC, but I know we dug into the 49ers' chances, opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl, 5-1, number one in the NFC. I do want to save that quarterback conversation because I think it's one that can be lengthy. But of course, something that we didn't get to last week and at the beginning of this week was the fact that the 49ers had some awards come their way. And the biggest one, of course, is Nick Bosa winning Defensive Player of the Year in his third season. A young man to do it. He is on his track to Canton. He continues to dominate at a level that we have not seen maybe probably since Aldon Smith this early in his career. And of course, Bosa looks set up to be to have that sustained success longer than someone as dominant as Aldon. But of course, Kyle Shanahan and Christian McCaffrey, both not named to their respective awards. Kyle Shanahan, NFL Head Coach of the Year. Christian McCaffrey, NFL Comeback Player of the Year. To that, you say, which is a bigger snub?
Oh, that's a tough one. So Brian Daboll, Giants head coach, won AP Coach of the Year over Kyle Shanahan, and Geno Smith, Seahawks quarterback, won AP Comeback Player of the Year over Christian McCaffrey. I know we've had this conversation in the past, Evan, but what the hell did Geno Smith come back from? Maybe it's just my
They wrote
mind,
him
and
off, Mark. They
I
wrote him off.
know, and he did it right back though. I know, I get the whole story. It's a fantastic story. And maybe it's my fault for in my own head assuming that comeback player of the year meant, able to overcome an injury because that's not the Geno Smith case. He overcame other obstacles. But I think for me, it's Christian McCaffrey. I probably would have voted Kyle Shanahan and McCaffrey, to win these awards. But I think McCaffrey, the incredible season that he had, the way that he turned around the Niners season and when he was the starter, did not lose a game in the regular season. I think at one point for this comeback player of the year award, you have to obviously consider the circumstances of McCaffrey's injury last year, the rest of Geno Smith's career. But it's also at a certain point, you have to think about it as, say, an MVP award and say, who was the more impressive player? And Geno Smith, while he had a really good season, he did kind of fall off a bit at the end of the year, and McCaffrey was just otherworldly. So I think McCaffrey not winning AP Comeback Player of the Year, probably a little bit of a bigger snub for than AP Coach of the Year, at least in my opinion. Daboll was incredible for the Giants. I'm not saying Shanahan wasn't worthy, but I think McCaffrey probably deserved it a little bit more than Shanahan might have.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but I thought Brian Dable would be head coach of the year. I thought that he and Doug Peterson to me would be the two that I would choose just because they did the most with the least. And honestly, the fact that Nick Sirianni wasn't even a candidate indicates to me that the committee was maybe weighing some of that a little bit more. And Kyle Shanahan, to me, just unfortunately, even though he did have two starting quarterbacks get hurt, he fell more into the Sirianni category of having a great team and to his credit, maximizing that team as opposed to turning around. And actually, I think Doug Peterson might have a better case than Brian Dable. The fact that he took over like a 1 or 2 win team last year and then turned them into a team that could win a playoff game is incredible to me. Neither here nor there. So, as far as Christian McCaffrey is concerned, yes, I'm with you. He had an amazing season. I don't think Geno Smith necessarily came back from anything in the traditional sense, but I don't get why people are so fixated on comeback player of the year having to come back from an injury. Like I don't know if that was ever in the definition of the award. Like you have to tear an ACL the year before to be comeback player of the year, or have to break an ankle or have a freak injury like Christian McCaffrey did last year in order to qualify for the award. Geno Smith came back from irrelevancy. That's what he did. He came back from being a journeyman backup quarterback to being thrust into the spotlight in Seattle and becoming the franchise's single season passing leader. Like that's to me what Geno Smith came back from, even though I do think Christian McCaffrey was snubbed from that award. And this is why. Because Christian McCaffrey was also snubbed from each all-pro team. I know he ended up being a random last-minute substitute in the Pro Bowl, but Christian McCaffrey had 1,900 scrimmage yards, the majority of which coming with San Francisco, and was the key reason for the turnaround of the 49ers season. So if you're talking about value, if you're talking about quality, if you're talking about talent, Christian McCaffrey checks all three of those boxes and was immediately a trigger and a Kickstarter for a team that ran the table the last 12 weeks of the regular season into the postseason. Whether it be Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey is the reason why they were the number one efficient offense in football from week 8 on. And he's the reason why they were in the NFC title game. To me, the biggest reason why that offense turned around. So salute to Saquon Barkley, salute to Derrick Henry, even Josh Jacobs, who I know technically led the league in rushing. Christian McCaffrey was the best running back in 2022 on to 2023. And I hope he maintains that same level, because if he does, we might not be talking about Comeback Player of the Year award, Mark. We might be talking about something called Most Valuable Player of the Year next season. If Christian McCaffrey can maintain this pace heading into next year.
Are you crazy? A running back winning MVP in today's
I know it hasn't happened.
game?
I know it. I think 2012 is the last time it happened, and it did take a 2,000-yard rusher to do so.
Yeah.
But again, if we're talking about San Francisco having a great path to get back to the Super Bowl, I think that also means a great path probably to the 1 seed. And what do they tend to reward? Great players on the best teams. And Christian McCaffrey might fit that bill next year, Mark. Just put in the cap.
Well, yeah, if there's ever a running back to win MVP in the modern game, it would be someone like Christian McCaffrey, who's a hybrid wide receiver and running back, who isn't your normal running back. So I am with you at least to that point. And the Niners are kind of a weird team where if you had to pick an MVP from their team, like if they made it to the Super Bowl, the betting market on Super Bowl MVP would have been crazy, because you could make a case for like 5 different players, where basically on any other team, it's okay, the quarterback. But that's not the case for the 49ers. So if they get a 1 seed, who knows? It could happen. Probably not. It could happen. But it is interesting. I did look up the definition of the AP NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. And what I have here is, quote, while the criteria for the award is imprecise, it is typically given to a player who shows perseverance in overcoming adversity from not being able to play the previous season, such as an injury, or from playing well in comparison to the previous year's poor performance. So you can come back from your own poor play and win the award. I get it. I really, the Geno Smith story was an awesome story, especially considering the fact that it had been years since he had really gotten a real opportunity. Fantastic season, and I salute him and I applaud him. But I think everything you said, I agree with. Maybe Geno Smith's story a little more memorable, a little more inspiring than Christian McCaffrey. But at some point, you also have to take in the pure greatness of the season that is up for debate. And Christian McCaffrey had a greater season than Geno Smith. It's unfortunate that he was snubbed from a number of different things, from the Pro Bowl, which he eventually got on as a replacement, from an All-Pro team, and from the AP Comeback Player of the Year award. Probably doesn't bother him all that much, but I think he deserved a little bit of recognition for the crazy season he had.
Well, we will continue to power on through these episodes in the off season as that wraps up this edition of the 415ers podcast. Go check out all of our previous episodes on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you download your podcasts. Mark, appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Evan. Looking forward to it already.
All right. Enjoy your weekend. You've been listening to the 415ers podcast on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network.